Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the channel. It is 6:10 a.m. p.m. It's 6:10 p.m. East Coast time. Yes, I'm doing this the night before this game. I'm doing this on Sunday night. I'm going to prep it. I'm going to have it scheduled out. It's going to be great for the first time ever. I'm not going to have to do this video early in the morning. Don't worry, though. I'll be up. Welcome. It is Sunday right now. Hopefully, you're starting the best day of the week, Monday. Hopefully, you're starting your week off right. And we're going to get into this showdown slate. Not sure what Draftkings is going to do with the prize pools yet, as they haven't really updated them for tomorrow. But I'm very excited for it because I've spent a lot of time for a showdown preseason slate, more than I probably should. So I'm going to have, even though it's showdown, I'm still going to have a lot of cash games in there, which I usually would never recommend, but I think there's just so much of an edge until 1,000 of you watch this and you all have the same lineup as me. But hopefully this helps. We're going to go through it. You don't have to play it by position as always. You can just showdown captain and then your one-offs after that. So we'll talk about it here. Also, if you're new, welcome to the channel. My name is Sal Vetri. I do cover daily fantasy sports in the NFL, NBA, MLB, and WNBA. There's no WNBA today. MLB slate will be up today as well as this NFL one. And please, 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 if you're watching, there's going to be like 1,000 plus of you watching. If you're not yet subscribed, hit that subscribe button. I have a goal to get to 7,000 subscribers by the end of the month. That's 12 days to pick up about 700 of you. So, I mean, there's 1,000 of you watching right now. What can you do for me? But yeah, I do have an NFL daily fantasy course. Everything that says up above, it is linked down below. It says that, right? Exclusive content on Patreon. There's really not much need to do with tiers later on, but I'll kind of write some one-off notes for some of these players on Patreon when I'm doing my tiers and adding information every day for the NFL, as well as what will happen in the regular season. So you can check out what's all down there. Have it for the MLB, have WNBA projections. I also have my NFL daily fantasy course. Worked a ton on that. There's about 20 people in the course right now. All positive feedback so far. If you do not like the course and you're in it, let me know and we'll make something happen. But right now it's a lot of positive feedback. I spent a lot of time on that. If you want to learn how to build overall projection sheets, if you want to know how to build stat sheets, know every single thing that I know about daily fantasy sports, on really how to start winning money and stop hitting the deposit button, that'll help you out. So check that out. Right now it's $50 off. And let's get into it. Let's stop with the housekeeping stuff, right? So appreciate it. Subscribe if you can. Check out all that stuff. Free strategy guys down below as well. So you don't have to pick a specific position, but I'll just go through all the positions like we have been doing for the preseason, and then you guys can make your decisions from there. Obviously, they're your decisions. It's your money. So in terms of quarterbacks, again, you don't have to even play a quarterback tonight, but there's two that I have interest in. I'm not sure if I want to get to both or either of them, really, but Drew Lock is going to be the main guy. Look, last week he played 9 drives. Last week you got, out of the rest of these Denver quarterbacks, you had Joe Flacco go out there and play a drive. He played 11 snaps. I imagine he only plays 1 to 2 drives, maybe a quarter at most in this game. And out of the rest of the Denver quarterbacks, you didn't have any Brett Rypien playing last week. And Kevin Hogan, he only played 2 drives last week. So there were 3 drives total between Joe Flacco and Kevin Hogan. The 75% of the rest of that game went to Drew Lock. Pretty much the whole second half of that game, really a little bit of the first half as well. So they wanted to see what they had in him. They let him throw it like 28 times. He played pretty well, had a good overall rating. That's a lot of overall drives, right? He had 9, but when you factor it into there's 1 kneel down before the half, so that's 8. And there was a 3-play drive where it ended in a safety. So if we don't count that one, still, he had 7 drives. That's more than you're going to get out of a lot of guys. That's a pretty good floor. So I actually have a decent amount of interest in Drew Lock. In Nick Mullins, I have some interest as well. So Shanahan said for the 49ers that Jimmy G is going to play. Likely 2 drives at most, so we get 3/4 of the first quarter, and then CJ Beathard's going to come in after him, is what Shanahan said he's leaning on right now. If that's the case, Beathard's going to have to be facing better defenders. Last week, Beathard and Mullins, they both threw 17 times in that game. Mullins had 31 snaps, Beathard had 32. So everything was the exact same in terms of opportunities and playing time. The only difference is Mullins was playing much worse defenders, and I actually think Mullins is the better quarterback. So if you're trying to make a decision there, it seems like Beathard's going to be the second guy in. Nick Mullins and Drew Lock are my guys that I would go to. No other quarterbacks stand out for me. Hogan seems to have fallen to the 3rd spot on this roster. Rypien's probably not going to play. Jimmy G and Joe Flacco, if they play, it's going to be 1 to 2 possessions. You don't want that at all. And I imagine Willen Speet, the guy from Michigan, imagine he might get scratched similar to Brett Rypien last week and just not play now that Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be stepping in. I imagine they give Jimmy Garoppolo the run, CJ Beathard the entire second quarter, maybe some of the third, and then Nick Mullins the rest of the game. So that's where I'm at right now in terms of quarterbacks. Drew Lock seems like a nice play who should play at least the whole second half, if not more. Nick Mullins should be playing probably close to the whole second half as well. Lock, the guy I would prefer if you're going to pick a quarterback. Mullins, though, has a lot of upside. Let's get into running backs. 4 running backs that I have interest in as of right now. This can change. You can see I have a ton of notes by all of these players. And hit that like button and the subscribe button if you're still here. Appreciate it. Let me know. You can follow me on Twitter as well. I've been posting a ton there. Lots of growth on Twitter is pretty cool. So a couple of running backs I have interest in. This is not in any ranking order. It's just how my spreadsheet is filtering them once I filter by yes or no in terms of my interest in this column F with the green and red. Austin Walter is the best running back on the slate. If you put any sort of research in at all, you will quickly find that out for San Francisco. Look, there's a couple of things why he's the best running back on the slate today. We'll start off with the injuries in San Francisco. Tevin Coleman, he's not injured, but he'll probably play. And a big reason why he's not going to play that much, maybe one, tops 2 drives, be out there with Jimmy Garoppolo pretty much, is because there's so many other injuries on this team. You just can't risk it at this point. Jerick McKinnon might not be ready for week 1. They're expecting him to be out now. Raheem Mostert, he got injured last week. He's probably not going to play. Jeff Wilson Jr., they don't even want on this team anymore. They didn't even let him play last week after some injuries were arising. Kyle Juszczyk, he's a fullback, so we don't want that. So that's the bottom 4 guys here. Matt Breida didn't even play last week, and they didn't give a reason. Now, he was recently released or taken off of the PUP list, but he's been practicing fine, even kind of returning kicks, which isn't something you put an injured player back to do earlier this month, the first week of the season. But he didn't play at all last week, and they really didn't give a reason, unless I'm missing it. So stay tuned for news there. I imagine that they have to activate Matt Breida for this game. Because if they don't activate Matt Breida for this game, there's literally 2 running backs that I think play 3/4 of the game or more, or like 90% of the game. If we give 10 possessions in this game and you give 2 to Tevin Coleman, the other 8, so 80%, are going to have to get split up between Austin Walter and Brandon Wiles. And Austin Walter is by far the best player on the slate. The rookie is going to get so much run here, extended run due to all the injuries. He had 18 touches last week on 19 opportunities. 18 on 19 opportunities. And it wasn't just all on the ground, which you guys know if you've been watching. I love their pass-catching running back so much. 13 carries for 38 yards on the ground. I don't care how ineffective he was, 3 yards per carry. I don't care about yards per carry. It's a terrible stat. I care about the opportunities that he had. The more opportunities, the more chances for a red zone touchdown. Obviously, the more opportunities to bust out a run. 13 carries for 38 yards, I prefer much more than 5 carries for 12 yards, right? Or 5 carries for 20 yards, even though he still had better yards per carry. That stuff doesn't matter to me. I love the opportunities. But not only did he have 13 carries for 38 yards on the ground, he had 5 receptions for 32 yards on 6 targets. He was the second leading receiver overall, led the team in receptions and targets, second leading receiver in terms of yardage, only behind, I believe, Samuel, who had like 61 yards, had a big catch. So Austin Walter, overall best player in the slate. The fact that there's now injuries in this backfield that are going to result in players just not playing nearly as much, if Matt Breida doesn't suit up, Walter might play 3/4 in this game. The other guy on the 49ers that I have interest in slightly, not as much as Walter, and really honestly, even if Walter's going to be highly owned, I probably still don't get away from him. I'd rather get away from some of the receivers that are a little bit less likely to kind of get their opportunities once again. So Brandon Wiles, he had 7 touches on the ground for 29 yards. He also had 1 target in the air that he caught for 4 yards. So overall, he had 8 opportunities, converted on all of them, 8 touches, 7 in the air, 1 on the ground. And out of that, he had 33 yards. Now, that's nothing compared to the 2.5 times the workload that Walter got last week, and I imagine the rookie continues to get. Again, there's a ton of injuries on this depth chart. Like, Matt Breida has not been one guy to stay healthy anyways during the regular season, if that happens to be the case. Right now, Walter is kind of the running back 4 on this team behind Breida. There's no reason he can't jump him. If McKinnon's injury lasts longer, there's no reason he can't be the running back 2 really quick. Imagine he continues to get the run. Wilds, though, don't kind of run away from his 8 opportunities. That's a lot. Like, we were talking about the past couple of days. You saw a guy who got 8 opportunities in the backfield, whether it was in the air or in the ground game. You kind of said, wow, I want to get some of that. So keep an eye on Brandon Wilds. He should probably also see a lot more run. I'd expect 15-plus touches for Austin Walter, probably approaching 20. Wilds, I would expect somewhere around 12 for this game. On the Denver side of the ball, so a couple things. Phillip Lindsay and Royce Freeman, they played the first series last week, and they split that series. They played it with Joe Flacco. All he played was 1 series, 11 snaps. They split those snaps together. I read some article I posted on Twitter. Some guy said, if Royce Freeman gets extended run, he'll be a great play. He averaged 16.3. This is exactly what he said. 16.3 yards per carry, 49 yards on just 3 carries. Terrible analysis, just absolutely awful. I don't want to say the person's name, but just terrible analysis because he had a 50-yard run, a 0-yard run, and a negative 1-yard run. So when you say it as if he had 16.3 yards per gain, and if somebody doesn't look into it on their own, they're going to say, wow, this guy was ripping off chunks of yardage. He had 1 good run, give it to him. 2 terrible runs. His success rate was awful. His opportunities converted were awful. Again, small sample. I know we're talking about that, but really, it's just stuff that you don't want to look at. So, no, I don't have any interest in Freeman. I don't have any interest in Lindsay. They only got 1 possession. Even if they get 2 possessions this week, there's no way I have interest in them. Not on a showdown slate. Theo Riddick is going to be out. Devontae Booker, he's going to be like their running back 3 right now since Riddick is going to be out. You can have interest in him a little bit, probably even more interest now that Khalafini Muhammad is going to be out, it seems. Right now he's questionable. Make sure to check tomorrow. Muhammad's been playing great in the regular season. Last week had a lot of opportunities, scored a touchdown week 1. The only reason I don't have interest in him is because he's questionable. Didn't practice on Saturday, so yesterday, which will be 2 days when you're watching this tomorrow. He didn't practice. So if he plays, yes, I'm going to obviously have interest in him, and I'd lowered my interest in some of these other backs for Denver. If he's not playing, it's going to give a boost a little bit to Booker, but really some of these other guys that I have interest in the backfield are going to be Devontae Jackson. He's likely going to see more run with Muhammad out. He went for 3 carries on the ground for 18 yards, but also in the air, he had 2 receptions on 3 targets for 18 yards and a touchdown. So overall, he turned 6 of his opportunities into 5 touches, and he had 36 yards and a touchdown. Pretty good. Obviously, touchdowns are variant. I'm not really looking at that as much as I'm looking at the 6 opportunities. I do like that. And then David Williams, he primarily had success as a pass catcher last week. He only had 1 rush for 2 yards on the ground, but they used him in the shotgun formation. He kind of ran out wide a little bit on wheel routes. He had 6 targets, 5 catches for 36 yards. I love pass catching running backs. Overall, he had 7 opportunities in this game, converted 6 of them for 37 yards or 38 yards. So I do like that, David Williams. Obviously, you can see right now that Austin Walter and even Brandon Wilds are kind of above these other 2. I do like Austin Walter, Wilds, and Devontae Jackson. David Williams kind of becomes this 4th option that I probably don't get too much. Muhammad, some of you have to check in with tomorrow. We're not going to get that news until later on, but it seems like he's trending to being out. It would bump up Devontae Booker a little bit, but I'm more concerned or more interested on the Denver side in terms of the guys getting in the second half. And Booker really didn't get that much run last week, so I'm more interested in the guys who are going to play more snaps in that backfield. Let's move on to wide receiver. And wide receiver is going to be interesting because I really don't care at all about the Denver guys. We have snap counts for the San Francisco guys, so that helps. So let's go there. And actually, what I did not mention was last week, Austin Walter played 44 snaps. He played 44 snaps. That's crazy. The highest snaps for a wide receiver last week on San Fran, which is a lot, was 36 for Samuel. 44 snaps is insane, and he's probably going to have to play more this upcoming week. Don't sleep on that at all. 44 snaps is just ridiculous. I can't even understand or can't really even translate how many snaps that is for a preseason game. He literally was on the field for like 85% of the game, 80% of the game. So San Francisco, I have interest in all their wide receivers, or a couple of their wide receivers, not all of them. Deebo Samuel and Jalen Hurd, the guys who are making a lot of noise out there, the young guys. Samuel led all the wide receivers with 36 snaps last week, caught 2 of his 4 targets for 61 yards. Cool. Jalen Samuel, 32 snaps last week, still heavy workload. He's the number 2 behind Samuel in terms of snaps, 4 less. 3 catches, 31 yards, and 2 touchdowns on 5 targets. But he's likely a fade option for me. Oh my God, Sal, how is he a fade? He's been fantastic. He's getting on the field. But it's a showdown, and if you want to win first place in a tournament, in cash, he's fine. Like, let me clear that up. If you're playing head-to-heads, 50-50s, even double-ups, he's probably fine. In tournaments, if you want to win it, you have to take a stand somewhere. I'm not taking the guy who catches the ball at running back in Austin Walter out of my lineup, who had 44 snaps last week, and he catches and runs the ball, and there's no competition there. And I get it. Jalen Hurd had the opportunities. He was on the field as well, but he's a wide receiver, and those 2 touchdowns, you take away those 2 touchdowns, he has an average start at 6.1 points. So everybody's going to be jumping on him. The ownership will be high. It's a spot that I would rather fade him instead of like a Walter in a showdown slate, because you can't get different by leaving money on the table. So the biggest way to get different tomorrow, and really the only way, is really ownership. So probably a fade option for me, but not totally sure yet. Samuel looks good. Richie James Jr., so Trent Taylor is injured. I imagine he does not suit up at all for this game tomorrow or today, whenever you're watching this. He also has had run with the special teams unit, kind of filling in for this Trent Taylor role. He had 28 snaps last week, which is pretty decent for a preseason game. He caught 6 of 7 targets, 6 of 7 for 31 yards. So he looked good. I imagine he starts to draw a lot of attention from people. Not a guy that I'm looking to get a ton of, but a guy that I'm definitely interested in. Again, ownership's going to be a thing here. If I'm already fading Hurd, I'll get as much Richie Samuel as I want. 7 targets on 28 snaps is a lot, but it's probably not sustainable. And I put this by Emmanuel Sanders' name. I have no interest in Emmanuel Sanders, but 21 different players were targeted last week. 21 in Denver. So that's just kind of telling you what they're doing right now in Denver, why I don't really have any interest in any of the Denver players. Juwann Winfrey is the only guy I have interest in week 1, if he even plays in this game. In week 1, he caught 2 balls for 15 yards and a touchdown against Atlanta. That was a Hall of Fame game. Didn't really do anything last week, but in terms of players that are standing out, there's really nobody. Like Emmanuel Sanders, Sutton, Hamilton, and Tim Patrick are kind of the locked-in top 4 guys, and then they're going to take 1 to 2 more guys. Juwann Winfrey seems to be one of those guys they're going to take. Nobody else at all is standing out in this receiving game for them. So if you're going to get to one Denver guy, Juwann Winfrey, there's probably a guy in here who will score like a 2-yard touchdown, or probably a guy in here who catches 3 balls for 20 yards and it'll end up in the winning lineup. I can't pick that guy out of a hat for you. That's pretty much what it comes down to at that point if somebody does that. Nothing is standing out in any of their beat writer reports. Nothing is standing out in their snap counts that I've been able to find. Maybe you have. Nothing at all. Another guy from Denver, Trinity Benson, he caught 1 pass for 26 yards on 2 targets last week. Again, nothing really stands out. Was targeted twice, once deep. Nothing crazy. Stephen Dunbar Jr. had 3 targets last week. Like, nothing is standing out for these guys. They didn't convert any of them. I don't believe so. So, not going to get there. Dante Pettis, I don't have interest in. He's been struggling a ton right now. Now, here's the thing, and maybe why I shift some interest tomorrow, and I'll update on Patreon. He's been going a lot of down, and the hype is going down on him. The hype is coming up on Jalen Hurd. The hype is coming up on Deebo Samuel. So now's a pretty decent time if Dante Pettis is going to get some snaps in this game, and he didn't have a ton last week compared to those guys. He had about half, if even that. Actually, did he even suit up last week, or was that week 1? I have to go back and look. But Dante Pettis, yeah, he's a guy now that he's trending downward. It's a time to buy low in terms of ownership, right? The price point is going to be the same as everybody else, but maybe in terms of ownership, it's time to buy low. Kendrick Bourne, he was on the field for 25 snaps last week, did not make as much noise as a Richie James Jr., but definitely had the same amount of playing time. He's a guy who was playing a lot during the regular season last week. He's a guy I like as sort of a pivot off of either a Samuel or off of either a Hurd, who has had a lot of success and probably will get some ownership, and or a Richie James Jr. So Kendrick Bourne, 25 snaps compared to Samuel's 28. He had 7 less than Hurd. He had 11 less than Samuel, and James Jr. had, 28, like we said. So, yeah, he's still getting opportunities out there. He's the 4th of the wide receivers right now in terms of battling for these backup or second spots, really the 5th and 6th. Kind of on that cut line is Kendrick Bourne when you factor in Trent Taylor, when you factor in Marcus Goodwin. So, Taylor is interesting to me, or not Taylor, he's going to be out, but Bourne is interesting to me just due to the fact that he's getting opportunity, and it's just not yet kind of in these small samples of literally a game to a game and a half with the, if you count the half a game for the Hall of Fame game, it's not really cultivated into anything yet, but last week was the week that it cultivated in for Ricky James. Why does that not mean that it can't happen this week, right? And too many people are going to think it'll just be repeated for James, which again, the opportunities in 7 seem likely that it can be, especially with Nick Mullins out there. But I do like Kendrick Bourne as a guy who goes very low owned. Again, a lot of risk there, but he's going to be very low owned. Jordan Matthews is going to be a name people see, not a name that I want to play. He was only on the field for 8 snaps last week. No shot I go there. Sean Pondexter, he was actually on the field for 23 snaps, so similar to Kendrick Bourne, I'll have interest. The only issue is he's dealing with an injury, so not sure if we get there. So just to recover it, Deebo Samuel seems like a nice play. He was on the field for 36 snaps. Richie James Jr. had a lot of targets. He seems like a fine play. Hurd was on the field for 32 snaps, right in between both Samuel and James Jr., but the 2 touchdowns are going to make his ownership way too high. I like the 5 targets, but it's going to be a likely fade option for me. And then your pivot points are Kendrick Bourne, who's on the field for 25 snaps, or even a Sean Pondexter, if he is actually in, was on the field for 23 snaps. Guys who are actually on the field, they haven't been getting looks, but they're on the field to actually do something, right? If you're not on the field, you're definitely not scoring fantasy points. So wide receiver is sort of only really looking at San Francisco. There's nothing on Denver that stands out. Winfrey seems like the only guy I'd have interest in terms of being a red zone target, but all the other options and really just all the targets, 21 different guys were targeted last week. That's crazy. Tight ends, I don't think you have to get to a tight end today. There's just so much. There's no upside here. Like Noah Fant's the only guy who has any upside. He caught 2 passes for 14 yards and 2 touchdowns last week. I believe he caught up 1 pass in like the first game, the Hall of Fame game, for 3 yards. Austin Fort tore his ACL, so now there's actually some more depth on this depth chart. At the tight end position, Jeff Heuerman, the veteran, he's going to make the team. Noah Fant, the rookie, is going to make the team. Now Jake Butt, a guy who's probably going to get cut, is actually back into the rotation here as maybe being that 3rd tight end. So there's just nothing here that stands out. Again, can one of these guys catch a 5-yard touchdown pass on 1 or 2 targets? Yeah. Can I predict that for you? No, I can't predict those touchdowns. So there's a great chance something like that happens on a showdown slate, and that's how somebody wins all the money. But if we're trying to play optimal for cash or even a tournament at this point, if you're only playing 1 to 5 lineups, I really can't recommend anybody outside of Noah Fant. Fant will be on the field the most, somewhere around 20 snaps, maybe 15 to 20 snaps or so. But even then, I'd rather more wide receivers. I'd rather get to 2 to 3 running backs before I touch a tight end. I'd rather get to 2 quarterbacks before I touch a tight end. Even 3 quarterbacks before I touch a tight end, just in terms of overall opportunity and what they can do with those. If Fant's on the field for 15 to 20 snaps, he's terrible at blocking, but they're going to try and get him to actually start blocking in the preseason, right, when it won't really cost you as much. So if he's on the field for 15, 16 snaps, he might block on half of those, go out for a pass on half, and be targeted like he was last week twice. There's not much upside there. That might be his ceiling. So not going to go there. Kittle's not even going to be probably playing because he's dealing with an injury. So he becomes interesting if he was to play like 2 series with Jimmy Garoppolo in this one. Has the upside to score a touchdown and or catch like 3 balls for like 20 or 30 yards. And that could be enough. But in terms of not having to roster a tight end, I think the strategy is just don't roster the tight end. In terms of defenses, yeah, you can get to the defenses in this game. Which one? I much prefer getting to... I would much prefer getting to the San Francisco defense because I think Denver overall quarterback situation outside it's not that great at all. You have Joe Flacco, and then after that you have Drew Lock. So Lock's going to play 2.5 quarters. So I prefer getting to the Denver defense just because you're going to have some kind of wiggle room with going up against the Kevin Hogan for probably a quarter. On the flip side of that, you have CJ Beathard, who's been a guy throwing an interception. You have Nick Mullins, who's been a guy throwing an interception. They both threw one last week. So, I mean, defenses is a toss-up. It's which one do you want? I can't predict anything for you. There's going to be overall, if indeed 2 to 3 Denver guys step on the field, meaning Drew Lock, Joe Flacco, and Kevin Hogan, I believe that 3 combination of those quarterbacks in terms of trying to get pick sixes or sacks and pressure rates, those 3 players are much worse than Jimmy G, CJ Beathard, and Nick Mullins. And I don't really think you can argue that too much right? Maybe you can. So defenses are definitely in play. I think getting to one or both of them is even fine. I'm going to stick to the skill position players, maybe throw a defense in there, maybe one of the quarterbacks. But that's it. Hopefully this video helps. It's a showdown. I put way too much time into it for a showdown slate. So just repay the favor by hitting the subscribe button. Check out the NFL Daily Fantasy course. The preseason discount is now available. It is going to be $50 off until the end of the preseason. So make sure you get in there. Regular season is going to go back up to $150 or $149. It's at $99 right now. The link for the code for the preseason discount is down below. You can check out Patreon down below. I have content through all the sports that are live right now. Appreciate it. Thank you guys so much. My name's Sal. You already know that. Peace out, gang.